That jerk threatened to hit me, but he was too chicken to actually do it. And then he insulted my friends and tried to touch them, but they fought back. So maybe this is why he got pissed off and ran away. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I will be reading from a subreddit, and our first story is, That Jerk Thought He Could Scare Me. When I was in my early 20s, probably about 22 or 23, I went with two of my best friends to a club in downtown Austin. We had a great time. It was just what we needed. And the three of us closed the place, as they say. All three of us were dating guys who were in the same band. They played gigs at a cafe that stayed open 24/7. It was called The Worm. I think they were called The Worms. Anyway, we left the club just after 3 a.m. and walked down the street, heading towards my friend's parked car. Since it was a weekend, parking was difficult to find. The lot where she had parked her car was about 6 blocks away. Before long, two men approached us. Both of them looked to be around 30. One was rather quiet, and the other one was flirtatious and rather loud. He kept asking us, "Where's the party?" I didn't say much to him. At one point, when he asked where the party was, one of my friends told him firmly, "The party is over." He seemed agitated by her remark. At one point, he reached out to touch my other friend's hair, and she told him to stop. He seemed insulted by that. Then, he reached over and touched me on the shoulders, saying I was dressed like a slut, because I obviously wanted a man to take my clothes off. He was so creepy. At that point, the guy who was with him said, "Roger, let's go." "Leave them alone, Roger." Then, I made a rude remark to that guy, Roger, because we were all sick of him. He became angry and said, "Say that again and I'll punch you in the face." The guy was obviously unstable, and he made us very nervous. The situation was a little awkward, because there were several couples on the street at that hour, just walking home from the club or something. They were likely heading to their cars, and they saw us walking past them, so they figured they'd try their luck. But they must not have been very good at approaching women, because they didn't make us feel like we were worth their time. So we continued on our way. Finally, we got to my friend's car, unlocked it, and started digging through our purses for our keys. As soon as we started rummaging through our stuff, these two creeps began walking away. I don't know if they felt like we weren't worth their time either, or if they were just trying to save face after being humiliated. But whatever it was sweet relief. My friend drove us home in her pickup truck. And afterwards, we all talked about how ridiculous those two guys were and how glad we were that they had left us alone. I have never gone to a club since, so I can't speak for whether or not this kind of thing still happens, but it was pretty awful at the time. It's sad to say, but my guess is that they would have attacked us if we had been less prepared. At the time, I was a tiny thing, barely 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. My friends aren't much bigger, so we were pretty scared. The worst part is that we couldn't defend ourselves. If we had been in an area that allowed concealed weapons, I definitely would have shot that guy who touched me. The guy that threatened my friend would have also gotten a bullet in his brain. Not saying I condone violence against men, especially not over something as silly as this, but I was young and stupid and really angry. I wish I could have defended myself and my friends, but in the end, we were okay, and that's all that matters. My friend and I don't live in Texas anymore, but we hear that those jerks are still living there and causing trouble. We just hope they haven't killed anyone yet. Our next post is, He threw my property into the river and called me names. On August 2016, I was walking my dog near the Ohio River in Clarksville, near the city of Evansville, Indiana. This was an extremely hot day, and so when I got to the riverfront, I took my shirt off and tied it around my dog's neck to let him cool off. There was a man on the sidewalk across the street watching me, and when I finished, I put my shirt back on. Well, this man crossed the street to talk to me. He said that my dog was in danger and that I should feel bad for doing that to my dog on such a hot day. I explained that the shirt was tied loosely and that he could take it off whenever he wanted, but he didn't care. He continued to yell at me, calling me an animal abuser and saying that I should be ashamed of myself. I was getting angry and annoyed at this point, so I told him to mind his own business. He demanded that I take the shirt off my dog right now, but I refused. I mean, I wasn't doing anything wrong. He grabbed the shirt and tried to take it off my dog. I grabbed it back and pulled it close to me. He started screaming at that point and yanked it out of my hands. I yelled at him and chased after him as he was running away. He threw my shirt into the river and kept laughing and screaming that I should feel bad for mistreating my dog. I walked slowly back to where I could get my shirt out of the river, and that jerk was nowhere to be seen. I was furious. I kept yelling at him and throwing things at him. My dog got wet and muddy, and I had no shirt for the rest of the day. That guy ruined my day, and he didn't even apologize to me for destroying my property and ruining my dog's day. I think you did the right thing by tying a t-shirt around your dog's neck. It looks like it works fine for him, and you were looking out for your dog. That guy sounds like a real awe. He has nothing better to do than antagonize people and throw their stuff into the river. What a waste of oxygen. And our last post is, what a nice guy broke my car window and called me names. I was 19 and attending university. I lived off campus in a house with some other students. There were 5 bedrooms and each had its own bathroom. My room was above the garage and the only window was on the roof. In order to get to that window, you had to go up a ladder outside. My car was parked legally in the driveway. One Saturday morning, I woke up to someone screaming at me. I got out of bed, confused, and looked out the window to see a guy in his 20s standing below me. He was yelling that I had dropped something out of my window and it had broken his windshield. I looked out and saw a shard of concrete sticking out of his window. Apparently, the wind had blown a piece of concrete off the roof, which had fallen onto his car. He was clearly intoxicated and smelled strongly of alcohol. He continued to yell at me, calling me horrible names. I responded by closing the window and going back to bed. A few minutes later, I heard him come up the ladder, bang on my door and start kicking it. Being on the second floor, I wasn't worried that he would break down the door. I got out of bed, went to the window and looked out to see him standing there with a large rock in his hand. I yelled at him to get away and he threw the rock at my window, which cracked it. I called the police while the guy waited around calmly. When they arrived, he was arrested for public intoxication and criminal mischief. I filed a complaint against him for attempted breaking and entering. His blood alcohol level was over 3 times the legal limit, and he was released into the custody of his father. The police officer told me that he probably would be charged, because he was unsure if the charges would stick in court. After he was gone, I went downstairs to look at the damage to his car. The front windshield was shattered and the passenger side window was cracked. I took pictures and sent them to him. He called me a couple of days later and yelled at me for half an hour about the damage to his car. I reminded him that he had caused the damage himself and that I had witnesses and photographic evidence. He said that I should pay for his new windshield and he would drop the charges. I said no and hung up the phone. He showed up at my house a few days later demanding money. I called the cops and he was arrested for trespassing. The charges against him were dropped and I paid for his windshield out of fear that he might show up and attack me. My roommate, who had witnessed the whole thing, was pissed and confronted the guy. He said that he would never bother me again and that he didn't mean to break my window. My roommate pushed him and called him a punk. It's funny because the OP is female. Otherwise, I doubt that the guy would have been so polite as to wait around for the cops. That jerk literally threw a rock at the window. It was a good thing that OP was smart enough to stay inside and call the police instead of coming out to confront him. And the fact that he was drunk meant that he would have easily lost any sort of fight. I'm glad that OP stood up for herself and reported that jerk. Maybe he learned his lesson, but I doubt it. Have you ever encountered a rude stranger? Share your story, and if you liked this content, check out my podcast, where I publish the exact same episodes.